Welcome, learners. Welcome to Black Slides Online. This is the place where you learn the sciences, namely physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, and agriculture. We meet now for a Form 3 biology lesson in which we are going to explore a topic called ecology. It's being a long topic. We consider this as the first lesson number 1 of the topic ecology, living things or living organisms and their ecosystems and their environment. So in case you are watching this video lesson on our YouTube channel, which is Black Slides Online, consider subscribing to the channel and also hit the notification bell for you to receive notifications every time we upload new material there. Remember, these are holiday lessons which are running up to the first week of September. You may also consider the option of enrolling into our main classroom, which is Black Slides Online Secondary School platform. In order to do that, just send us a text message to the number shared here. That will accord you the opportunity to access hundreds of past papers, PDF notes, workbooks, and other materials on the main platform. Invite your friends to join us. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell also. We are preparing our class of 2026-2027 MSCE class, who are writing their MSCE in June, July next year, 2027. So welcome. If you are just about to enter Form 3, we are just entering Form 3 this coming September, this can be a good starting point for you. Welcome, learners. So without wasting your precious time, let's get down to the lesson. I've said many times that in order to unlock the understanding of any topic, it is important to define the topic where it first appears, or where it appears for the first time. That's called the principle of first mention. The principle of first mention states that in order to have a thorough understanding of any topic, it is important to define that topic where it appears for the first time. So in this case, we are looking at the concept called ecology. From the biological point of view, we shall define ecology in the following manner. What is ecology? Ecology is simply the study of interrelationships of organisms to each other and to their environment. So ecology is a pseudo study that examines the relationships, the interrelationships of organisms. It can be organisms themselves, different organisms interacting, or the organisms and their environment. Remember that the environment is simply the total the sum total of all the living factors and non-living factors surrounding that organism. The living surrounding of an organism, or the living factors surrounding an organism, are called biotic, from the concept bios, which means life. While the non-living surrounding is called abiotic factor. A means without. Abiotic, that means without life, or non-living. Abiotic. The letter A, when used as a prefix, it means without. Like last time we talked of asexual reproduction. A means without. So people who study ecology are called ecologists. You can also rise up to be one of the ecologists in the future, whose interest of study will be the environment and the organisms in it. We have three main branches of ecology, namely what is called Autecology. Autecology is the study of single species in its natural habitat in isolation. Let's suppose that you're interested in studying a particular cichlid on Lake Malawi, a cichlid such as chambo. Alright, so if you're interested in studying chambo only, which is a species of fish, a single species of fish. Chambo is not the only fish species that is found on Lake Malawi. There are others there too. There is a usipa there. There's matemba and the other species. There's what is called mulamba or catfish. But now, when your focus is on chambo only, it means you are doing a type of ecology known as Autecology. Autecology. So you can study chambo in Lake Malawi, or you may be interested to study the behavior or lions in the national park, such as Leonde National Park, or any other place where you live. You're just interested in a single species or single type of organism. Remember that species are organisms of similar features, similar appearances, So if your interest is on just a single species or one type of organism, then you are doing a type of ecology called Autecology. Another type is Synecology. Synecology is basically the study of different species of organisms interacting amongst themselves within an ecosystem. Let's take, for example, the Lake Malawi ecosystem. And you're interested to investigate the interaction between chambo, usipa, matemba, mulamba, and all other organisms that are found there. Different species. Then that's called Synecology. Okay. Then we have applied ecology, which is the study of practical ways all communities of organisms interact. Let's say you work in the national park, say Leonde National Park or Kasungu National Park. We are interested to investigate, or to rather to study how lions, elephants, gazelles, and other species are interacting in it. That's going to be applied ecology. Welcome, learners. This is Black Slides Online Secondary School, where you learn the sciences. Invite your friends to join us on this platform so that they too can learn. They can benefit from these lessons. Welcome, learners. If you are watching this for the first time on our YouTube channel, consider subscribing to the channel so that every time we upload new material there, you should be updated on time. There are terms that are very key to this topic, which I would like to share with you. You should have thorough understanding of them. These are key concepts. So from time to time, these concepts will be mentioned each time they relate to a discussion at a particular point. They come up, and so you should know what they mean. Biosphere is one of them. Biosphere is part of the earth and the atmosphere, which is occupied by living organisms. Remember, bio means life. A sphere is just a region or a particular portion of the earth. The earth has different spheres. It has a part which is surrounded by water. That's called hydrosphere. There's a part that is surrounded by the earth, the solid part of the earth, which is called the lithosphere, which consists of the soil, the rocks, and the other components. So biosphere is one of the parts of the earth. It's the part of the earth and the atmosphere, which is occupied by living organisms. Think of all living organisms, plants and animals. The region they occupy is called biosphere. Another one is habitat. Some people love to call this habitat. With the T at the end, it is in most cases silent. So it's habitat. A habitat is a place where a particular set of conditions where an organism lives. In simple terms, it's a place where organisms live. Such as lakes, you find the fish there. You find the hippopotamus and other organisms, savanna, forests, even in the air. Some organisms live in the air, such as small floating particles organisms. So habitat is just a place where living things live. For example, fish live in water. So that's water. In that case, the lake is a habitat for fish. And then we have what is called an ecological niche. A niche is what an organism does in its habitat. So this is a position an organism occupies in the habitat in terms of physical space, its role in feeding, relationships, and the interactions with other organisms. That's a niche. So a niche, you could look at a niche as just the profession of the organism, what it does for survival, its contribution to the ecosystem, what it's doing there. Whether it's a producer, like in terms of plants, so plants, the niche of plants is producers, making food for photosynthesis. You have some organisms whose niche is to feed on plants. We call them primary consumers. And we have organisms that feed on other animals. We call them, they could be secondary consumers and tertiary and so on. So that's the niche of organisms. So what you do as a person is also your niche. Something like a profession, what you do. Another term worth defining is population. So a population refers to all members of the same species living in a particular habitat at a particular time. For example, all wild flame trees on a empty farm. This is a farm somewhere in East Africa. You can also think of cedar plants or trees on the Mulanje Mountain who form a population. So we use the term population when you're referring to species, members of the same species. Otherwise, if you're referring to the members of different species, then that's called a community. So organisms, sorry about that. So organisms belonging to different species that interact in the same habitat or ecosystem are called characteristics. They are also called a community. For example, animals in Masai Mara. This is a region in an ecosystem in East Africa. So different species that interact in the same habitat are called community. So what is an ecosystem then? An ecosystem is basically a natural unit composed of biotic and abiotic factors where interactions tend to be self-sustaining with a small input. For example, fresh water, forests, lakes, oceans, etc. will form an ecosystem. Another one is biomes, from the word biome, life. It's a large, distinct biological communities of particular vegetation living in areas of similar climate. So organisms living in areas that have similar climates form biomes. So examples of biomes include tropical rainforests and savanna. Carrying capacity is the maximum number of organisms or species an ecosystem can support without depleting the available resources, or it is the minimum number of plants and animals it can support without overgrazing it. That's called carrying capacity. We are looking at a topic called living things and the environment, or ecology. Welcome, learners. Another equally important term relating to ecology is primary productivity. Productivity is the rate of production by autotrophs. Remember that autotrophs are organisms that can produce Food by themselves. Mostly these refer to plants which produce food by photosynthesis. So primary productivity is the rate of food production by autotrophs per unit area per year. How much food in form of course, glucose produced by plants during photosynthesis. So the rate of food production by autotrophs per unit area per year. So this can be done by simply looking at gross primary productivity, which is the total rate of food production. Okay, by food here we mean glucose, which is made by photosynthesis. It can also be in form of a net primary productivity, which is food remaining after respiration. Remember, respiration is when food is converted into energy by combining glucose and oxygen. So the food that remains after respiration per unit area per year is called net primary productivity. Is measured in kilocalories per square meter per year. Welcome learners, this is Black Slides Online. So an ecosystem comprises of two components, namely biotic, which are living organisms, and abiotic, living things or living factors. So the two major components of an ecosystem are living components and non-living components. The living part is called biotic. The non-living part is called abiotic. So here we have some examples of abiotic factors. Abiotic factors include light. So there's light in an ecosystem. So the availability of light would affect the intensity. The aspects affected by light include the intensity of light, the wavelength, duration, like how long there is light, and also the nature of the color of the light and the amount of the light. So light would affect plants in a number of ways. You'd recall from junior biology that light is needed for photosynthesis. Some plants need more light, others grow well in shades. So light is needed for photosynthesis. It also controls opening and closing of stomata during photosynthesis, during daytime especially. Other than that, light influences germination, flowering, and leaf fall. Welcome learners to the platform. So they will ask you, how does light affect an ecosystem? You will mention these points. So light is needed for photosynthesis by plants. And the light also controls the opening and closing of stomata during photosynthesis, especially during daytime. And other than that, it influences germination, flowering, and leaf fall. The amount of light can be measured using an instrument called the photometer, also known as light meter. So you should see the place played by light in an ecosystem. So light is such a very important factor in an ecosystem. So take note, how does light influence the activities of an ecosystem? We'll mention these 3 points. Welcome learners. Another non-abiotic factor, non-living factor, is temperature. Temperature affects all the life processes, namely photosynthesis, respiration, germination of seeds, enzyme activity. It also affects physical processes such as transpiration, evaporation, decomposition, and weathering of rocks. Remember, temperature is how cold or hot an object is. In this case, how the coldness and hotness of an ecosystem. So we are saying temperature affects all life processes such as photosynthesis, respiration, germination of seeds, and the enzyme activity. It also affects physical processes like transpiration. Transpiration is the loss of water from plants. Evaporation is also the escaping of water into the air when heated, or changing liquid water into vapor. Decomposition, which is also called breaking down of dead plant and animal material by the action of bacteria, and formation of soil from rocks, which is called weathering. Temperature can be measured using a thermometer. Another abiotic factor is atmospheric pressure. Remember that atmospheric pressure is simply the weight of air acting on the earth, on the ground. It's called atmospheric pressure. This is just weight of air in the atmosphere acting on the ground. So variation of atmospheric pressure affects the availability of carbon dioxide and the oxygen for photosynthesis and respiration. Carbon dioxide for photosynthesis and respiration, oxygen for respiration. So the key points to note is that the lower the pressure, lower pressure leads to higher transpiration rate in plants. When the atmospheric pressure is low, transpiration rate increases. In other words, plants lose more water into the air. When the atmospheric pressure is higher, it leads to slower transpiration. So decrease with altitude or height above the sea affects the rate of evaporation and plant distribution. Atmospheric pressure can be measured using a barometer, be it a mercury barometer or aneroid barometer. Welcome, learners. My name is Mr. Pochilola, your teacher. I represent Black Slides Online. I hope that everything is going on all right with you. In case you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. I'm available here for you. Welcome, learners. Another abiotic factor, remember that we are still discussing abiotic factors, is humidity. Humidity is basically the amount of water vapor in the atmosphere. When humidity is low, meaning that when there's less water in the atmosphere, the rate of transpiration increases. There's faster transpiration, and when there's more water in the air, in the atmosphere, there is slower transpiration. That's how humidity affects the ecosystem. It pertains to the loss of water. Low humidity leads to faster transpiration, while high humidity leads to slower transpiration. Transpiration can be measured using a hydrometer, or what is called a wet and dry bulb apparatus. The next abiotic factor is rainfall or water, which determines water availability for living organisms. You have heard the expression that water is life. Yes, it is life. It supports organisms in their ecosystem. So, availability of rainfall or water determines the availability of water for living organisms. It affects plant distribution also. More plants grow in wet areas and fewer in deserts. Water is required also for germination and as a raw material for photosynthesis. The amount of rainfall falling in a particular area can be measured using a rain gauge. Welcome, learners. This is Black Slides Online Secondary School. Another factor which is considered to be a biotic factor is soil. There are many aspects of soil that affect distribution of crops, plants, and animals. One of them is soil pH. Different plants and animals adapt to specific pH. Remember, first of all, pH is basically the acidity or the alkalinity, a measure of the acidity and alkalinity of soil. So plants and animals adapt to specific pH. It also affects nutrient availability, as you learned before. So pH can be measured using inverse indicator or pH meter. Again, relating to soil is topography. Topography is the shape or the slope of land surface. Steep slopes lead to surface runoff of water and erosion, while gentle slopes keep water. There is more water retention. And another one is relating to topography's aspect or the direction facing the sun, which will determine the rate of photosynthesis and also availability of moisture due to variations resulting from evaporation. Aspect is simply the direction facing the sun. Topography. Another one is soil, air, and water, which is needed for respiration, nutrient uptake, and germination. Also relating to soil is mineral salts and trace elements. Deficiency of these mineral salts and trace elements would limit growth of plants, and excess of them can be toxic to plants, affects which plants grow where. Welcome, learners. Another one is, there are many factors which are considered to be abiotic. Another one is wind. Wind affects the rate of transpiration and pollination. In strong winds, when there's strong winds, there's an increase in water loss, and it can also damage plants. It can also help in the dispersal of seeds and spores. Wind direction affects migration and the distribution of organisms. And the speed of wind can be measured using an anemometer or wind vane, if you like. So anemometer measures speed of wind, and the direction is measured using a wind vane. Another factor, a biotic factor, is salinity, which is saltiness. It refers to the concentration of mineral salts in water or soil. When the water is too salty, there's less water uptake by plants, except plants which are called harophytes. Harophytes are plants that can grow well in salty environments. salinity or saltness of either water or soil can be measured using an instrument called a refractometer or conductivity meter. So these are factors which are non-living. They are called abiotic factors. They affect the ecosystem. So for each one of them, remember to state how it affects the ecosystem, and in the discussion we just did that. Let's look at biotic factors. So this refers to living things surrounding an organism. So living things bring about competition. In fact, organisms compete among each other. Organisms compete among each other. So that's one of the factors called biotic factors. So competition. We define competition as the struggle for limited shared resources such as water, light, space, mates, food, and minerals between organisms. So when organisms fight for water, light, space, mates, food, minerals, that's called competition. So all organisms would love to survive using these limited resources. So the struggle for them is called competition. There are different types of competition, namely intraspecific competition. So when same species fight for or struggle for limited resources, that's called intra. Intra means within. Intra means within. Let's say jumbo fish struggling for the limited available food, the phytoplanktons and the zooplanktons on Lake Malawi. Their competition is considered to be intraspecific competition. You can also look at an example of intraspecific competition. Male lions, for example, fighting for female lions as mates or sexual partners. So that's intraspecific competition. Same species struggling for the limited shared resources. Another one is interspecific, meaning between. Inter means between. So this refers to competition between members of different species. For example, lions versus gazelles, leopards against gazelles. That's different species fighting for the limited resources in an ecosystem. That's called interspecific competition. So competition leads to a number of consequences. Competition can lead to migration or emigration, movement of organisms from one place to another, especially the weak ones. The weak competitors would run away from the ecosystem. So they will leave. They will choose to leave the ecosystem to where they will feel safe. So some organisms will emigrate, meaning they'll move away. It can also lead to displacement, whereby poorly adapted organisms are pushed out of the ecosystem. This is more or less like emigration. Okay, it can also lead to coexistence. The two organisms living together. This occurs when competing organisms have different niches. For example, Paramecium aurelia and Paramecium caudatum can coexist in the same culture. These are microorganisms. Severe competition leads to elimination of one type. Welcome, learners. We are now discussing biotic factors after we've looked at abiotic factors in detail. Another example, let's say grazers and browsers. Grazers are those that eat tall grass. For example, zebras eat tall grass. The wild beast eats shorter grass, leading to gazelles, for example, eat soft, new growth. They live in the same habitat without direct competition for food. So this is an example of coexistence. So other than competition, another biotic factor is predation. Predation is feeding relationships where one organism, which is called predator, kills and feeds on another organism, which is called a prey. The organism that eats another, that kills and eats another organism is called a predator, while that which is killed and eaten is called a prey. All right. So predators have some features which enable them to survive, which enable them to compete well over resources, or which enable them to catch their prey without problems. We call those adaptation or predator adaptations. Some organisms have sharp eyesight, strong jaws, beaks, fast flight movements, muscular limbs, camouflage, instinctive hunting behaviors. These are called the predator adaptations. Examples are hawks and eagles, which have sharp eyesight. Lions have strong jaws and strong muscular limbs, enabling them to catch their prey without problems. So this is a hawk with very sharp eyesight. It can see its prey from far away and catch it without problems. Prey adaptations. So the organisms that are prone to being eaten or killed or eaten have certain features, adaptation features, in order to escape from their predators. Such adaptations include camouflage, which is change of color according to environment, moving fast, defensive structures, warning, coloration, and the herding behavior. Examples include stick insects, which mimic twigs. Gazelles have eyes on the sides of their head for wide vision, for them to be able to see their predators and escape. Zebras have stripes to confuse predators. The stripes mimic the color of their environment in order to confuse their predators. So these are called prey adaptations. So how does the predator and the prey population relationship work? Let's suppose that in a particular ecosystem, there's an increase in the number of prey, the animals to be killed and eaten. That would mean that it will lead to predators having more food. And for that reason, the predator numbers are going to increase. The arrow pointing up means increase. So when prey numbers, the animals to be eaten, when the food increases, look at prey as food for other organisms. So when the prey numbers increases, the predators have more food. What that means is that the predators will increase in number. And when there are more predators, it means there's going to be demand for more food. When the number of predators increases in an ecosystem, it means there is going to be a need for more prey. What is going to happen is that the number of prey is going to decrease. The food, the animals to be eaten will decrease because the eaters are more than the prey. So less food would mean a decrease in the number of predators. Less food means predator numbers will decrease. So the cycle repeats itself. This cycle is known as the predator-prey cycle. So the graph shows this relationship. All right, so over here we have a plot of population density and greenest time in years. So when they prey, right, so if you look at this graph, you see that when the number of prey increases, this curve here represents the number of prey. When the food increases, the eaters increase in number, and it follows that when the food decreases, like this part here, the prey decreases, the predators also decrease. When the prey increases, the predators also increase, like that. So this is like you're looking at a superposition of waves during wave interference, but this has nothing to do with waves. We are looking at the relationship between predators and the prey. Remember, predators are the eaters, the animals that feed on other animals, and the prey are the animals that are killed and eaten by other animals. So there's a relationship that goes on between the two. So an example is when you have high gazelles population, the number of population, the lion population also increases. Remember that lions feed on gazelles. All right, so when the number of lions increases, the number of gazelles, we start with the increase in the number of gazelles. This will lead to the increase in the number of lions, because lions feed on gazelles. And when the number of lions increases, it means that there will be higher demand for food. Therefore, the number of gazelles is going to decrease. And that means less food for the lions. So the number of lions will also decrease, like that. Welcome, learners. If you are left behind, don't hesitate to contact us for more explanation. That's what we are here for. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Invite your friends to join. You may also have the option to join our main learning platform, where you have access to hundreds of resources there. Welcome, learners. Let's now appreciate the relationships that take place in an ecosystem. Relationships within an ecosystem. So make sure you know the meaning of each relationship, the term used, and what is involved. And you should also be able to give examples. The first one is parasitism. From parasites. I'm sure you've heard about parasites. So parasitism is a close relationship where one organism, which is called a parasite, gets nutrients from another organism, which is called a host. In the process, it harms it, but it doesn't kill. So a parasite simply harms a host, but does not kill the host. I'll give you a simple example: is louse on your body, or lice in subway. I'm sure you've heard about subway on the human body. So these benefit from you by sucking your blood, but they don't kill you. So your body is a host, and the subway, the lice is a parasite. So parasites live on, meaning they feed on a host. There are two types of parasites. We have what are called ectoparasites. These are external. The word ecto means external. These are parasites such as ticks, leeches. These live outside the body. Endoparasites, on the other hand, are parasites that live inside the body. Examples are tapeworms and the plasmodium. Plasmodium is the parasite that causes malaria. These live inside, so they're called endoparasites. The effect of this relationship, parasitism, is that the parasite gain food, shelter, but the host loses nutrients. It gets sick and weakened, and the host survives, and their distribution is also affected. So we are saying it is in most cases the parasite that gains food, but the host suffers. Another relationship is known as symbiosis, also known as mutualism. So during symbiosis or mutualism, both species will benefit from the relationship. Examples are legumes and the rhizobium bacteria. So bacteria fixes nitrogen for plants, and if the plant gives bacteria food or shelter. So both bacteria and the legumes benefit from the relationship. Okay, this is called a mutual relationship. During a mutual relationship or symbiotic relationship, both organisms benefit. Another relationship in an ecosystem is called saprophytism. Saprophytism. This is a feeding on dead or decaying organic matter, whereby the dead organic matter is broken down, releasing nutrients back into the ecosystem for use. And this is very key in the nutrient cycles, which we are going to discuss later in a separate lesson, such as nitrogen cycle and carbon cycle. This is the role played by bacteria. So bacteria act on dead plant and animal materials, in the process releasing nutrients into the ecosystem in the soil to be used again. Saprophytism. So think of saprophytes as the organisms like bacteria that feed on dead things. Another one is commensurism. Commensurism is a relationship where one benefits, the other is neither helped nor harmed. Okay, so examples are organisms such as epiphytic ferns. You have seen ferns, they like to grow on trees, tree branches, or orchids that grow on tree branches. They get better light and food, but the tree gets no benefit out of it. That's called commensurism. So in other words, in this relationship, one organism benefits, the other one doesn't benefit, but it is also not harmed. So ferns get better light for photosynthesis, but trees on which the ferns grow don't benefit anything, but they are also not harmed. So other factors affecting distribution of and populations of organisms include diseases. Diseases will reduce the numbers because some organisms may die eventually. Diseases may also cause stress on the organisms. Food availability. When there's more food, it means there's higher reproduction and there's abundance. But when there's less food, the numbers will decline. There's going to be a decrease. Another one is space. More space means larger populations, as more organisms will find shelter to live in. But overcrowding is going to lead to competition and spread of diseases. But also another factor that affects distribution of population is natural calamities such as floods, drought, fire, tsunamis. These reduce population size as some of them are destroyed or killed in the process during these natural disasters, which are also called natural calamities. Welcome, learners. So we come to the end of this lesson, in which we have looked at the terms used in the topic ecology. We've looked at the definitions of different terms that pertain to this topic. We've also looked at relationships among organisms. We've looked at two types of factors, such as biotic and abiotic factors. Please, for each, make sure you're able to state how it impacts on the distribution of organisms on an ecosystem. Questions for you to do and submit. These ones here. State 4 abiotic factors affecting plants. 2 marks. How do biotic factors affect organism distribution? 2 marks. Define habitat, population, community, ecosystem, ecology, ecological niche, carrying capacity, biomass, primary productivity. 20 marks if you have defined this fully. Perhaps just because there are 10 of them, so each definition is 2 marks. Welcome, learners. It has been wonderful to present this lesson to you. Expecting to see you again shortly in a different lesson, of course. Bye-bye, learners.